Please welcome our presenter for today's webinar, Building a Personal Brand on Social Media, Natalie Eminae. Good morning, Natalie. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning, Rory. I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Very well, very well. I'm expecting to see some thunder today, so fingers crossed. I do quite like the thunder. That's just me. I'm sure other people do too.
It's a bit of added drama, isn't it? And I think as long as you're nice and cozy and can watch it indoors, it's quite an entertaining thing.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. I'll just leave you to take over and crack on.
Fab, thank you. Well, have a great session. Thank you to everyone for joining me this morning. I'm going to be talking about the power of building your personal brand on social media. And it is something that a lot of us struggle with, but offers absolutely huge opportunity. And because it is a personal brand and it's all about you, I would encourage you to get the very, very most from the session. Please do get involved. Any questions that you have, any specific things that you want to share with us, please do get involved in that Q&A box. We'll be reviewing it as often as we can throughout the session to give you guys the answers. Be completely selfish. You'll get more from the session if you participate and share for the information that you would really, really like. So I'm going to jump in with a screen share and we're going to have a little look at some slides that I have prepped for you guys this morning to tell you all about the power of building your personal brand. And for lots of businesses and lots of organizations and lots of individuals within them, as mentioned, this offers huge opportunity, but there is also the worry or a slight level of concern around a number of personal brand issues that can trip you up. It is highly rooted in how differentiated you are from your business brand. And there's going to be a whole range of you guys in the room or watching this on the replay as to where your personal brand sits with your actual company brand. Now, if, for example, I was Natalie Eminae financial consultant, then my personal brand and my business brand are very, very closely linked. But there is still the key difference that I am an individual and my business is a business. But for a lot of people within organizations, you do have the benefit of having a job title, and it's about making sure that your business brand shines, highlighting you as an individual. It comes back to a whole number of things, but one of the key phrases you're going to be hearing a lot through this session is people buy from people. It is so true. I can't stress that enough. So we're just going to jump in with a little bit of a differentiation of your personal brand and how people might perceive that. So a great definition found, unattributed, just a digital marketing definition: your personal brand creates expectations in the minds of others of what they'll get when they work with you. So it's not what they'll get when they work with your business or your company. This is very, very much about your own individual personal brand and how we really pull that out and get that shining on social media. Now, if we were to go a little bit old school and start to think about personal brand outside of the online world, so your in real life personal brand, we can start to see that it's a little bit easier to differentiate you and your organization. So for you as a personal individual, anything that you do around your world of work is helping define your personal brand. Now, while we're all working from home or working from home partially, or the employment lines are slightly blurred at the moment, it's something that's easy to lose the definition of, especially digitally. But if you want to drop on a little bit of inspiration, looking back at, let's say, the very 2019 now thing of going to a networking event, that will help give a little bit of context. So if you imagine yourself getting ready for a networking event, anything that you wear would be considered your personal brand. It's how you effectively style yourself, what you would wear to work, any marketing communications that you have. So if you went to a networking event and you handed out a business card, that would be a representation of your personal brand within the business. How you spoke about yourself at that networking event. And this covers multiple things. So it covers not only how you speak about yourself and how you do business, but how you might even make small talk with other networking attendees. Me and Rory have already had a very little British chat about the weather at the start of the session. Now that has inadvertently, through conversation, formed part of our personal brands. You now know a little bit about Rory and what weather he likes. You now know a little bit about me and my approach to thunder. So it's all these tiny little elements that give a glimpse of us as actual individuals within a professional business world that make up these business brand elements of your personal brand. And it's how we can draw these out and really amplify us as human beings to get people buying from us, not just the business that we work for. This has all sorts of massive potential in terms of if you're an individual and you can have a very strong personal brand as a small company that people buy into, you can effectively supercharge your growth. If you are within an organization, you can use it to progress, or you could even use it, dare I suggest, to help further your career, whether that is with an external company to the one you are currently with. So your personal brand has absolutely huge value for yourself, your current organization, and your future. I can't oversell it enough. There's a lot that we can really tap into. Oh. So today we're going to be covering a number of issues that are the most common features around concerns of growing your personal brand. We'll be looking at how to overcome them, how to get it working, and we'll be looking heavily at LinkedIn as an example network, but more on that in just a moment. So today we're going to be covering the professional line, so finding the right balance for you and your sector. So this is something that affects us in the online world as well as the offline world, but on the online world, sometimes it's a little bit harder to draw those boundaries. It's very easy, I find, to not answer my office phone at 7 p.m. on a Friday night, but I may struggle to not reply to a LinkedIn message at 7 p.m. on a Friday night. So it's about understanding your personal boundaries, how we get those established, and how we can have those in place to make you feel a little bit more comfortable as we start to progress growing that personal brand. If we have a nice set goalpost to begin with, it can make you feel a lot more comfortable, a lot more confident, and really able to start to tackle this tricky terrain. And we can then always shift those goalposts as we see fit, but having a really solid understanding of what is going to be the right balance for you, your sector, and most importantly, your customers. How much or how little do they actually want to see of you? We're going to be covering the tricky subject of being human in digital spaces. So how do we actually get across the idea that we are three-dimensional human beings with thoughts, feelings, lives, and dare I say, interests outside of work that we might use in a normal conversation to help build rapport, to help close a deal? How can we represent this online digitally? Developing a professional reputation. So this is really about talking about your individual story, and have we got enough chapters going in there to make your audiences invested in your narrative, and is your timeline easy enough to follow? We'll be looking at growing your connections, so joining conversations in digital networking, and the very trickiest subject of all, how to generate sales through your social media without selling your soul. Because the benefits of having a personal brand on social media are massive, but for a lot of individuals, let's say a few of us more shy and retiring individuals, it can then suddenly feel very, very icky to have to try and sell as a person. We're going to be looking at little things that we can do throughout the seminar, and one key top tip for this at the end for overcoming the complicated area of selling to people that you actually know and have built trust with without feeling like it is a hard sales process. So a little start to get us started. 82% of customers trust a company when their senior management members are active on social media. And this comes back to the biggest driver that we have of all when it comes to purchases, which is social proof. So a lot of social proof in 2020 will come from recommendations. It will come from apps that we use. So for example, if you're going to book a holiday, you might look at TripAdvisor. If you were going to book a restaurant, you might look at Yelp. So we have around us all these opportunities for us to actually peer-to-peer recommend and demonstrate that the service is good or quality is good. Now, the same thing happens when it comes to business and actually making informed purchase decisions. And if you look at the leading kind of companies around the world, the ones that will spring to mind if you were thinking leading companies of their sector do tend to have very public figures at the head of them. So for example, you were to think about Apple, there's a few names that come to mind. If you were to think about Tesla, I know certainly there is one name that comes to mind. But if you were to imagine these as leading their industries, you can actually see that by having that very public narrative, I mean, how active is Elon Musk on Twitter, for example? We do see that individuals find it easier to buy into these business stories because they are framed not just with business developments, but actually with very real, very human faces at the front of them. And as smaller businesses, so as SMEs, we can actually tap into that human element with our own personal brands to tell much, let's say, simpler and less controversial stories than some of these names that I have just dropped there. But we can tap into that element of people would want to see a human side to the business, and they will want to have something that they can actually believe in. And it's our job to build that professional reputation through a strong personal brand, but to not only make sure that we build it, but that it is an accurate representation of who we are as individuals. So when it comes to your social networking, there's always going to be a little bit of a marketing mix. And one of the things that I always talk about, and a lot of other digital specialists will talk about, is the value in picking the right social networks for you. And the right social networks for you are the ones that your target customers are most active on. When it comes to personal brand, there is a standout network by far, and that is LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn, old school LinkedIn stats, people used to see it as an online CV. And for a long time, it very, very much was. When I first started out in my career, so I graduated in 2010, long time ago now, it was all about get your CV on LinkedIn and you will get a job. And that's all that LinkedIn was really there for. There was a little bit of networking, a little bit of building your connections, but ultimately it was an online CV to make sure that you were visible for jobs that you wanted. And it has come on leaps and bounds, and actually is the strongest possible platform that we have to build a really good, robust personal brand on social media. But if you have a different customer mix, so if you are far more B2C, or you sell to a niche audience, so you might sell very heavily to the under 35s, for example, you need to look at having other platforms within that mix. We're going to be looking at LinkedIn today, but all of the examples that we look at and all the things that you do can be easily replicated on Instagram, for example, if you were going for the under 35s, on Twitter, if you wanted something that was a bit more of a dynamic, conversational, high-paced networking experience, we can look at Twitter. Facebook, for anyone that predominantly sells to the over 40s in a very, very friendly sort of atmosphere. So if you are in any way crafty or perhaps slightly arty, Facebook might actually be worth consideration for building a strong personal brand on. We do get asked all the time at the office about TikTok. If you are going for a very young audience, it's well worth considering it. But within that mix, just consider where your audiences are going to be and where you need to present yourself as a direct result. As a social media marketer, I am most active on LinkedIn. I am a little less active, but still quite active on Twitter because that is where my connections tend to play. I do have a professional presence on Facebook and on Instagram as well. But for me, my two big power players are LinkedIn by far the lead, and then Twitter as a nice secondary option. So think about where you actually need to be, and that will help shape your strategy as we progress. So be focusing on LinkedIn and having a little look at all of the things that we can do within our profile setup to get that working for us as individuals around our personal brand. So we're not going to be looking at your company pages. This is all about you for once in social media. This is an example of my current LinkedIn profile setup, and key to being yourself online and building that personal brand is actually, it starts very simply with getting your profile picture right. Now, your profile picture does not have to be a headshot, but between you and me, it generally is a bit easier if it is. So your profile picture can be any picture of you in a professional capacity. So this is how you would like your audiences to see you. There is no right or wrong with this, but they are varying shades of grey. So if, for example, you went onto my LinkedIn profile on a Monday morning at 10 o'clock and the picture was me dressed for a night out with a cocktail in my hand, you might not think I was perhaps the most suitable or safe pair of hands to run an effective social media marketing strategy, because I'm giving you a glimpse into my outside of work life. Suddenly you are looking for me for a professional reason, but I'm actually saying, well, I know you're in a professional headspace, but I'm not quite matching this with where I am. If I was a professional mixologist and the profile picture was me with a cocktail shaker in my hand, that gives a very different element, because you're probably going to my profile to look for a professional cocktail maker, and I am probably matching that expectation a little bit more. Now, it's absolutely fine to have hobby photos or to have pictures of yourself with the kids. I would probably try and make sure you were the only adult in the image, just to help make sure that that is very distinctly and easily identifiably you when audience members are speaking to you. My big no-no is your company logo. Please, if you have your LinkedIn personal profile page set up with your company logo, please do think about getting that addressed straight away, because you don't go into a networking event with your company logo plastered all over your face. You will proudly wear your face as yourself as an individual, and we really need to start getting that level of distinction between you as an individual and you as a brand. You can also see just to the right of where I am, it will list my company, which it will automatically do. That just pulls through as a feature on your feed, and there is the company logo anyway. So we get the exposure for the company within my personal profile, but really this is all just about me and me as an individual. So my opportunity to differentiate myself and tell people coming to my profile a little bit more about my personality. So the cover image that we have at the top does feature just standard imagery that we use as a brand. Now, these are issued to all of my team for a bit of symmetry in LinkedIn presence, but they are not under any obligation to use them. So some do and some don't, but it just helps fulfill that very difficult, tricky space. But if you can get a particularly narrow image working of anything that you would like to represent, there's a great opportunity to add a little bit of depth to your profile there. This could be product shots if you are lucky enough to make something beautiful. It could be a graphic if you are a bit more B2B like us and you don't actually have the benefit of having anything particularly stunning that is the fruits of your labor to look at. From there, once your imagery is correct, it will start to frame and start to shape your personal brand on social media. And this is no different as to if we were doing something like this on Twitter. It would be about getting that cover imagery right and then getting your personal image right. A little bit of a life hack for getting your personal brand consistent across all platforms is anything that I want audiences to engage with me professionally on, I will stick that same headshot on there so it has the same synergy for my audiences. So for example, if one of my clients connects with me on LinkedIn and then sends me a connection request on Facebook, I will use the same picture there. That for me is a subtle indicator that I'm still using that network in a professional work capacity. If I wanted to subtly signal that I don't use that platform professionally, and perhaps I might not connect with that individual on Facebook, my advice would be have that as a different image. So have it as something that actually pivots you away from your work life within that network, to indicate to customers or anyone that might like to connect with you that it's actually a different space for you. If you can get that same image across all platforms that you would like to work with customers on, I will even use it on my WhatsApp. So if I'm messaging clients professionally, it comes from that image of me. It's much easier to start to build this stable, regular, predictable brand of me as an individual that is consistent across all platforms. Just as if you were a business, you would always have your logo displayed in the same way or in a set of parameters. Having the same imagery of yourself on social media platforms will help create that stronger brand presence. And it's a trap that a lot of individuals fall into, where they might put something a little bit different on Instagram, something a little bit different on Twitter, but then they use all of those networks interchangeably with customers. The first step to getting it right is to get that consistency nailed down. Your next option on LinkedIn on your profile will be your name. That is literally as you've got it. Although a brand new feature for LinkedIn, you can now pre-record the pronunciation of your name. I would highly recommend it if you have a name that is unusual to pronounce, particularly if it is your first name. No one can pronounce Eminae, but I'm not too fussed about that because everyone pretty much can pronounce Natalie. But if you have anything that is a little bit more difficult or a little bit tricky for audiences to pronounce, if they can get an understanding of how your name is said out loud simply by recording a video snippet, so it's just audio and it will literally just play your name, they will feel like they know you a little bit better because they are aware of how to say your name. They fully understand your name. So they know what you look like, they know your name. It's about building these important connection points that we as all humans crave. Underneath the name or the pronunciation tool, you have the opportunity to tell the world what you do. And literally, my job title is Director at Okoko Media. But that's not the information that's most valuable in that box. For anyone that scrolls further down on my profile, they can see that anyway. For anyone that knows me, they know that anyway. But that little box there is really my opportunity to tell people who I am and what I do. If you can, I would really recommend this as a really strong, important part of developing your personal brand on LinkedIn. But again, you can replicate it on Instagram, you can replicate it on Twitter. It's just about getting those bios right to really sum up who you are in terms of your achievements and your daily duties and what you can offer audiences. So if we can keep that fairly split between, you can see the first part is all about me, social media strategist, speaker, business founder, that's me. And the second part is what I can actually offer to potential customers, delivering award-winning digital marketing campaigns and services. So can we make it a little bit about me and a little bit about you? So when audiences meet me for the first time via social media, if I'm networking online, or if they've met me elsewhere, or if we've emailed and they're looking me up on LinkedIn with a view to connect, the first impressions that they get of me is a little bit brand-based in the company that I work for, a little bit of me as an individual. They can see me in a professional capacity. They can find out my name, and they can see a little bit more about what I can do and a little bit more about what I can do for them. And it really just frames that. So getting these profiles right is a very, very fundamental, important part of building your personal brand. It is essentially the foundation stone. Getting that locked down and correct with all of the elements that you might want to display will set you up phenomenally well for actually achieving success when we start to do a little bit more when it comes to telling stories and engaging. The other areas of your LinkedIn that I'm just going to whiz through to get right will be your about section. This is a little bit more than your introduction, and it's really you putting your fingerprint on what you do in a touch more detail. So you've got your overview and then you've got your about. you're about should really frame the type of businesses that you are looking to work with, or the types of things that you really do. This is your fingerprint, this is your DNA, this is me, and this is what makes me completely unique. If they were to put anything on my business tombstone, this is what they would say about me. It's about getting that immediate buy-in of your audiences in terms of who you are and what you do. Now from there, you will have your experience section. So this is where it gets a little bit more like your CV. And make sure that you've got this filled out at least with your current job. So I'm going to be completely honest with you, and unless someone is looking through your LinkedIn profile with a view to employ you, they are probably not going to read every word of your previous experience. But by having a good chunky amount of what you currently do and how you can help your audiences in your current experience, it just again lays that foundation of your personal brand and helps you establish it. By working through your networks and getting them effectively internally audited like this, it's going to make it a little bit easier to establish your parameters and the types of things that you would like to talk about within your social media to build that personal brand better in a long-term strategy. So have these as initial foundation building blocks, basically laying that initial stone of your profile and getting that right, and from there we can go on to build really great things. You do also have the opportunity to bring out your skills and endorsements, and LinkedIn has launched the very fantastic, very interactive skills quiz. So you are able to take a skills quiz. This is great for anyone who is not particularly super comfortable with acknowledging all of the skills that they might have. So it's a great way to really identify getting in additional features. Now your skills will also be searchable on LinkedIn. So anyone who's looking for people in your area with those types of skills, it's a great way to get some added visibility on the platform. Again, developing that professional reputation, making it easier for you to be discovered, and really adding kudos to your individual personal brand. In terms of your achievements and logging those on LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, whatever platform you personally need to develop your brand on, what I would really recommend is about every 6 months or so, take a full comprehensive audit of each of those profile sections. Whatever the network you're looking at, these networks and platforms change quite quickly. So they're always launching new features, and only by basically going through and doing a little audit of yourself are you able to make sure that you're capitalizing on every opportunity. But it also gives you the chance to update any experience with any cool projects that you've worked on recently, any job titles that may shift with an organization that's very easy to never quite get around to updating that LinkedIn profile on. But it means that essentially we are maintaining that profile and we are continuing to look after the founding stones of your own personal brand. We are keeping those current. It's very easy to slide in the habit of not really checking this, but I would recommend at minimum every 6 months. If you could check it every month, that'd be fantastic, and you would have this full bells and whistles LinkedIn profile that's going to really work and dazzle any audiences when they find you with your strong personal brand. But in reality, if you can do it every 6 months, I would absolutely love that. That will be enough to keep you going and keep you very comfortable with that. Once we've got the foundations right, we can start to move and develop into other areas. And the key bit about your professional, personal business brand is going to be replicating your connections. So really building your connections online. And again, it's one of those things where if we start to look at it rooted in the offline, it makes it a little bit easier to decode. So in terms of building your connections, I've got a very fun, hopefully, activity for everyone to take part in. So once you have built your profile and it's very, very strong, whatever network it's going to be, I would really love you to make a nice cup of coffee or tea, no judgment, and sit down in front of your computer screen. And you're going to need a few things from me. You're going to need your email address book, you're going to need your mobile phone, and you're going to need any physical address book or business card holder that you have. What I would like you to do is start with your mobile phone and scroll through your connections. I want you to look for the people that you actually speak to, that you actually converse with in a business professional capacity or in a professional space. So this could be, you know, that your brother-in-law runs a certain company, and although you don't deal with him directly, he's a professional business connection of yours. What I would like you to do is have a little audit through anyone that's in your phone book that's not currently on your LinkedIn or you're not currently following on Twitter. Get that connection request sent and get that in real life connection moved into that digital space. Once you have done your phone book, move through your emails, and again, just literally start at A, work through to Z. Make sure anyone that you actually are connected with and doing business with or contacting with in a professional space is represented on your professional profile. This is going to help you build that strong network that you have around yourself and replicate that on, bear with me 2 seconds, just a slight technical difficulty there. Let me just jump through. That will help you to replicate your audiences in a digital space. And if we have that audience in a digital space, we are essentially preloading our online reputation with people that are actually strong connections. That will make a lot of what comes next easier when it comes to differentiating your personal brand and telling your story, because what we're doing at this point is we're taking anyone who is invested in your brand, on you as an individual, who really knows you, and we're moving them into that digital space as they will be able to support and assist you with that journey. So make sure that you've got everyone covered off, and this is an activity that's well worth doing. Again, as a little bit of an audit every couple of months if you can, to make sure that your online connections really match the people that you do work with. As you're starting to do this, we're going to be able to move into additional activities that come next that will really help supercharge this networking space for you and your personal brand. So once you have got the foundations correct, once you have got your network built, it's all about getting your social networking working for you as a professional individual. And what I would like you to do, once your LinkedIn profile is completely set up, or Twitter, or Instagram, or Facebook, once you're set up and happy and active, it's about making those connections count. So install an app onto your mobile phone and make sure that a good number of times a day or a week, you are actually going onto that app to look at your connections and maintain them. Now, what I mean by that is actually logging into LinkedIn or any network of your choice and actively spending 5-10 minutes in little bursts looking through things that people have posted with a view to commenting, liking, and engaging with other people's content. It's all about when you first walk into a networking event, you might be a little bit nervous. You might not be entirely ready to stride up to someone and introduce yourself and just literally start talking about you. But the easiest way to build rapport with others is to find these human connection points and also to add value to these ongoing digital conversations. So essentially, we're looking for content that we can bring some level of experience or expertise to, based around people that you know and feel comfortable with if you are just starting out for building your personal brand. And the easiest way to do that is to log on to your chosen network and look for content that other people have shared or created that you can like, comment on, or share. Now, this goes in a slight order of hierarchy. So the most basic thing that you can do on someone else's post is like it. That is simply the thumbs up. You can now on LinkedIn also offer a range of other responses to that. So you can say that that's a curious article or it's interesting. So you're able to go a little bit beyond a like. You can also showcase support. But there's a whole kind of option within that one click, and it is literally just a one click to engage with that content and that person, that individual. Now, the nice thing about this is you are effectively building your personal connections by adding a little bit of engagement to someone else's content. So the content you have not had to create at all, no effort has gone into that, but you are able to get a little bit of exposure on your chosen platform, because people will be able to see the content that you've liked, and they will be able to see that level of exposure. You will look like you are networking on that platform because you are networking on that platform. Now, a like is basically the lowest form of engagement we can give a post. If we were to look at stepping that up a little bit, what you can do is go beyond a like on a post and comment onto it. So if you're going to comment, always focus on adding value and developing that person's story. So if that was something that a customer had posted saying, oh, we're seeing great results from X, Y, and Z, having that comment on there saying, oh, that's really interesting, we've also seen A, B, and C, adds value to that customer. Seeing some content that you like that might share a little bit of advice that adds huge value to you. I'm going to give you an example of a post that I saw recently that added huge value to me. This was a post from a professional speaking coach who tackled the tricky issue that we all experience if we are public speaking, where you kind of want to take a big sip of water, but you might not have any water to hand, but your mouth is starting to feel dry. Even if you do manage to get that water and manage the big sip, all that will happen now is your mouth is going to dry out quicker and quicker and quicker each time. It's why a lot of speakers will ration their water. He shared a top tip for actually, if you very gently, if you're trying this at home with me, very gently bite down on the back of your gums at the back of your mouth, it will make your mouth feel a little bit fresher and you can keep talking. So it's a great little additional tool. And that content added huge value to me. It was literally a 30-second video of this individual sharing that content. Now from there, I had the option to just like that. I actually had the option to scroll on, but to help build that rapport and actually let that individual know that they'd added value, I took the time to thank him and say that it was a great tip and I was definitely going to try it. So I would hugely recommend, as part of building your personal connections and your personal brand, is actually, if people share great content, don't be afraid to engage with it, either through that very light like, or if you can, through actually posting a comment that adds to the conversation. I would go back to the old school rule of, if you haven't got anything nice to say, probably whoever's posted doesn't really want to hear it and can make you seem a little bit aggressive online. So let's really focus in on the positivity. If you see some content that you don't like, maybe unfollow and scroll past. But for your personal brand, make sure that any content that you feel actually adds value to you as a professional individual, we are engaging with to really help build and develop that reputation. This will also teach you the type of content that you like to see. So we're learning by watching others on the platforms as we start to get started with what we would like to post, how we would like to represent ourselves as we start to join in the conversation. The best way to learn what you like and dislike on a platform is to literally look at other people's content, and it will help shape your understanding of the platform. Now, this doesn't have to be your competitors. This could be absolutely anyone or anything. And certainly on platforms like LinkedIn or like Twitter, do take a moment to follow what we would refer to as those thought leaders. So these are the Elon Musks, they are the Richard Bransons, they could even be sort of local prominent business figures, people that you admire and would like to look at the content that they share and how they engage with their audiences. Easiest way to kind of learn what works and what doesn't work for you as an individual is to watch other people make those mistakes or get those great posts out there. You're conditioning yourself as to what you really like on those social media platforms. As we're starting to develop our network out like this, we are going to have a little bit more of a consideration as to where we sit as individuals within these networks. So starting to understand the connections that we have around us and understand what we may represent to them. So this is a little bit of another marketing activity where we start to actually take a view outside of ourselves. with a view of, okay, we know that our networks are these people, but actually how do they see us, and what type of information or what type of representation would they expect from us? If, for example, you are working in digital, do we need to be seen as energetic and vibrant? If we are working in financial, do we need to be seen as a very safe pair of hands? If we are creative, do we need to be demonstrating these qualities to our audiences? And we need to start to think about, on these professional social networks, where we are trying to build this professional personal brand of us as individuals, how we begin to start to tell the right story about who we are and what we do, that not only fits and complements how our current connections see us, but then takes them on a journey with us. And we want them with us for the long haul. For as long as we are in business, for as long as we are working, we are going to have some of these connections that we have right now are going to be with you in 10, 20, even more years' time. So it's all about getting them to buy into our personal narrative and story. And the easiest way to do that is to tell the right story behind you as an individual and you as a brand. It's the narrative that goes behind things that is the story of a brand that we believe in, that over long term generates sales, generates trust, generates connections. And the same way we would do this for a business presence, we are literally just going to do that on an individual level for us as human beings. So once we've got your connections there, vibrant, working, we're engaging with them a little bit, but we're still not quite sure what to say about ourselves as individuals, there's another really nice activity that we can do that we refer to in the office as connection analysis. So this is really about taking a moment to drill down into your own connections, to start to see, first of all, whether they are the type of people that you really do want to be connected with, and how we can make that work, or whether actually there's a disparity there because we want to be talking to CEOs and all of our kind of current connections are interns and apprentices. So how do we get that connections shifted up a little bit? The only way we can really do this is with a little bit of old school research, and there is no software hack. As much as I love a software hack, there's no real software hack for doing this on LinkedIn. There are a few variations for different platforms, but we'll be focusing on LinkedIn. So I'm going to show you the very old school way of doing it. All you need in true Blue Peter style is a pen and some Post-its, and this is how you might get that working. So easiest on a desktop, go to your LinkedIn connections and have a little look at your network as a whole. What that's going to show you is your connections and your contacts, people that you follow, your groups, your events, hashtags and pages. To break that down, the really important ones here are your connections. These are the people that you are physically connected to. It will also give you a number of contacts. This is how many people you are connected to that also appear in your email kind of mailing system if you have connected it to LinkedIn, and your phone if you've connected that to LinkedIn as well. But the really key things are your connections and your contacts on here, and we're going to start to look through them in a little bit more detail. If you click to develop your people filters, this is going to allow you to run a little bit of a current account analysis. So you can then start to see your first degree connections, and you can then start to see the locations that they're based in, their current companies, their past companies, their industries, their schools. There's also a whole number of these that go kind of beyond this screen in terms of the level of seniority and kind of past experiences and different things that you can tap into to help really get a handle on who these audiences are and what they look like. Now, this comes back to the old school marketing idea of your buyer personas. These were people who were hypothetical people that might typically buy your product, and you give them all sorts of human attributes. So you'd be, okay, I run a boutique, and a customer in my boutique is Sally, and she is in her mid-40s, and she likes the color red, and she lives in a detached house, and she drives this type of car. Would be an old school marketing persona. These would be the type of people that you would project your brand upon. For your personal brand on your own social platforms, we're actually able to go way beyond the idea of these buyer personas and actually look at the people who have bought into you as an individual and connected with you on LinkedIn. And what I want you to do is have a little look through and build these categories into anything that you would like. This is going to make it much easier to tell your story. So for me as an individual, we do a lot of work within the marketing and advertising sector, and we do a lot of work within automotive sector. So I might select to look at all of my contacts within the automotive sector simply by selecting that little box there and run a search. Now from that, that's going to bring up all of my automotive contacts, and I can actually start to look through them in a bit more detail. And because it's LinkedIn, I can see their current job titles, current companies, and their profile pictures. So these people go beyond being a name in my phone book that I may call from time to time, to actually being a real life human being that I am connected with, and I can see their profile pictures. Now from there, grouping into key audiences just by having a little look at key things and key common features that these individuals, that are your connections, have. So by grouping things that they might be interested in, it starts to make your audience on social media a little bit more tackleable. We're not having it as this whole audience that we're going to have to tell this massive narrative to that's a one size fits all. We're looking to pick out key industries, and within that, key groups of people that might have a vested interest in our personal brand, and start to think about how we want to present that in a post by post way. So what journey do we want to take these individuals on? For example, if I'm looking for me, I'm looking at automotive, and I'm looking at a category which would be sales managers. So what do I as an individual, as a social media marketer, want to say to sales managers that might be potential customers currently of mine in the automotive sector, or they might be potential customers that I might be able to win in 6, 12 or 18 months or even further down the line? What do I want to tell them about myself as an individual to build rapport and start that sales progression? And what do I want to tell them about my work achievements and how we start to frame that? Now, with that example in mind, I'll be looking at any interesting case studies that I can share with them. I'll be looking at any interesting headlines. So it might be a news article that I could comment on, perhaps something around the importance of a digital media presence for a car dealership in order to generate visitors to the showroom. So anything that's sort of in the headlines that I might be able to provide a bit of commentary on. Could I create content that actually tackles key issues that face them, like how to get your Facebook ads working for that particular sector? So if we start to group your audiences and then actually understand what they want from us and their varying needs, it makes it much easier to start to begin to tell this personal brand story, because you don't have to get someone from barely knowing you to knowing you inside out in one post. We just need to build those little building blocks to get them on this long-term journey with you around your personal brand. It's all about figuring out exactly what those audience members may want from you, and there's going to be variations on the same theme. So if you can start to pull out those themes and think about the things that you might like to talk about your connections with that will add value to them, it becomes the foundations of getting these regular posts for your ideal personal brand, and having to not tell an entire book about yourself, but just literally we can start to break this down into chapter by chapter and sentence by sentence to get this working a little bit better. So now I can see that we are on 5 to 11. So very rapidly approaching 11 a.m. where we'd like to take a little break and come back and look at, okay, we've got our audiences, we've got our foundations, but how do we really do all of the very exciting supercharging opportunities and capitalize on those? But if I could just bring Kirsty in to answer any questions, that would be absolutely brilliant. I'm just going to stop the screen share for the time being. And hopefully you guys have got some good Q&As in the Q&A box for me.
Yeah, sorry there, my cat was set on my mouse. Quite up actually, so I was clicking away to try and make myself visible. So hello everyone. So yes, we've got a couple of questions. So Pete Nicholson came in initially with, would you use your hashtags in your comments?
Sorry, could you just say that again? Sorry.
Would you use your hashtags in your comments?
Okay. So hashtags in comments. I would certainly use hashtags within posts, but I wouldn't use hashtags within comments, purely because that is someone else's post. So it is kind of up to them whether they would like to be joining in other conversations with it. Hashtags are generally used to make content discoverable and to join in more conversations. So if you are commenting on something that someone has posted, I would probably err away from adding in additional hashtags, because you might inadvertently take that person into getting certain comments that they wouldn't want, and just have that restraint. But if it is your post, so we're posting from scratch, I would absolutely include LinkedIn are recommending 3 hashtags for best practice, but you can include more or less depending on how many you feel that you need in those. So absolutely on your own content, comment and hashtag away. But if you are commenting on someone else's content, probably don't introduce any hashtags, just as an etiquette thing. If you did it, it wouldn't be the end of the world, but it might just mean that whoever posted that content sees a slight pivot in the interaction that they hadn't intended on. Oh no, is this internet working?
Hello.
Is that working? Is that working?
Can you see?
Hi, Rory. I don't know what
Can you now?
I can hear you now, Kirsty. Yes.
Okay. Like, hello. I didn't know whether it was me that had gone off or you. Sorry, everyone. Slight technical.
Always the exciting world of live, isn't it?
We're live. So sorry. I'll try that again. So, are you okay? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Yeah.
You're going a little bit patchy. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Do you have any tips on choosing which content posted by others you would interact and respond with?
Yeah, I would definitely focus on content that I can interact with very, very positively, and I would try and have that so it's somewhere where I can add value. So if it's something that I like but I can't really contribute anything or say anything meaningful, I would just go with a like or kind of a response. But if it is content where I think, oh, that's interesting because I've also seen this, or oh, I wonder if they thought about this, or if it's someone that's actually asking a question that I can kind of recommend, even if it's, you see all these fantastic questions on LinkedIn, like, can anyone recommend a good podcast to listen to? It doesn't necessarily have to be something professional that directly relates to a service that I would provide, but it could be, oh, actually, well, I quite like Gary V's podcast, so I would thoroughly recommend that one. So definitely anything that you can join in and add to the conversation is worth getting involved in that space, or anything that people have done very, very well. So if it's a work anniversary, or if it's someone's achievement, or they've won an award, certainly get involved in, this is great, this is fantastic, is very nice. If it's someone's linked to a blog and it's had value for you, saying this is great, this is fantastic, that's good as well, but I would really reserve that only for those instances where it really has delivered some substantial value for you. You don't want to come across as insincere with it. So I would go for always the positive and always just trying to add value or really brighten someone's day with what we're sharing.
Cool, thank you. And then Peter Nicholson's come in with, please explain the importance of stories.
Okay, so stories in the context that I'm using today will be a little bit different to things like Instagram stories, which is actually a feature of the network. So Instagram stories or Facebook stories, they are literally 10-second videos or images that we can share. But the way in which I'm talking about stories today is the way in which we all learn to understand the world as kids is via stories. So if you think about, reading to a child, or those old fairy tales that teach us like dangers and things, and don't go wandering off into the woods because there's wolves, and all of the really important life lessons that we really need to have in 2020, we learn to understand the world by actually the things that we tell ourselves and the things that we tell each other. So actually the importance of stories when it comes to a personal brand is actually, are we telling those around us the right things about us as an individual to keep that story going? We don't want our story to be cut short. We don't want our story to be, we start on LinkedIn, we have a fantastic presence for 3 weeks and then we never heard from again because we just don't keep that narrative up. We want the story to be consistently delivered over days and weeks and months and years to make sure that our audiences can grow with us and maintain those connections. So it's all about those stories, about how we can demonstrate what we're doing and also how we fill in the blanks. So by telling people what we're doing between us seeing them, it shapes an idea of the types of things that we might do. As humans, we are super nosy creatures. We like to know what people's work lives look like, what behind the scenes at an event looks like. So it's about having that sort of level of giving people that little bit of story that they crave that helps make the rest of their story about us that they largely might tell themselves make sense and give them the right directions and the right things that we'd like them to be talking about.
Yeah, awesome. That's fabulous. So yeah, we've just approached just after 11. Do you want to take a little 5 minutes, everyone, just for a little comfort break, and then we'll come back and conclude our session today?
That would be perfect. Yeah, so I'll see you guys about 5 past. And any questions or anything, just feel free to ask them while we're on the break, and we'll pick them up as soon as we can.
Awesome. Hello everyone and welcome back. Hope everyone's feeling relieved. I've just made myself a nice hot coffee, ready and raring to go. Are you okay to take over, Natalie?
Absolutely, yes, let's jump back in.
Awesome. I'm just going to have a quick little look to see if we had any questions throughout the break, but there's no questions on there.
Oh, there was one about stories from Peter, but it was a little bit of a curveball, so I've responded in the text.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, great stuff. Oh, well, I'll leave it over to you. Have fun.
Fab. That's great. Let me just get this screen share up and working again. I'll just be 2 moments while I set this all up. So a very quick fast forward recap right there. So we're looking at what we represent to all of our connections and how we can utilize that representation to really tell a strong personal brand story. And then from there, understanding where we need to draw the line. Where do we need to set our goalposts for ourselves within our professional, personal business brand? And where you draw the line will vary depending upon your sector, your audience, your connections, and what you need to talk about. It will also vary depending upon you as an individual. So I'm more than happy to do video content and record videos for LinkedIn and for my professional networks, although I do feel your pain. They're a bit of a kind of faff to fit in sometimes, but I do understand the power of it and I'm always happy to get on board with that. However, for some digital marketers, really what I do would be considered a drop in the ocean. I saw a marketer recently record a short video of themselves in the bath, which for me is so far beyond my personal line, but for them as an individual, they were getting huge amounts of engagement. And hey, if that works for you and you're comfortable with that within your parameters, feel free to do that. As long as you're not doing anything that hurts anyone else or is illegal, it's all good when it comes to representing yourself with how your audiences would like to see you and how you would like to see them. But have a little consideration as to where you're going to draw those lines and how you're going to use it to really set yourself an idea of where you want to go and how we're going to get there with your personal brand. So for me personally, more than happy to share videos, share tips, share advice, and that really is where I see, going back to my connections, being able to add that value. But if you are selling a product, for example, it's a little bit trickier to basically give that information away. But could we share complementing information such as how to style a certain product, or could we give back to our community by really getting on board and supporting customers with charities, with anything else? So it's all about basically deciding how we want to be seen and then making it happen. We see a lot of little blurs of the lines when it comes to your personal voice on LinkedIn. And I had a client call me a couple of weeks ago regarding one of their team had posted on LinkedIn saying that they were very happy it was the weekend. They had a day off on Monday and they were so glad that they didn't have to think about any work things at all over the weekend. And the client was very unhappy because they didn't feel that this was a proper representation of their brand, during which time they fully expected, while staff may not be necessarily actually thinking about clients on the weekends off, they felt that there was no need for clients to actually know that and see that information confirmed in a digital space. So give some consideration to how much of yourself and how much of your personal versus professional space you want to divide up and start to put some lines in place, even if these are little checklists for yourself as to what you would like to make sure you're creating and what you would like to err away from. When it came back to the looking at other people and telling their individual stories on LinkedIn or on Twitter, on Instagram, it will help with identifying what content you want to put where, but it will also help with looking at other people and what content do they share that makes you go, wow, I really like that person and I really feel connected to them. And what content will they share that makes you go, oh, okay, I'm not really sure I needed to see that person necessarily in that certain light. I would much rather that if I thought that they were thinking about me and my work project on their weekend off. So it will help you set those lines and those parameters, but having a little bit of a sensible approach to how you would like to do that works very well. We are in a completely media and marketing submerged world. If you were looking at things like LinkedIn or Twitter, it's very easy to start to pick those platforms up outside of business hours, which allows you some significant opportunity if there's a great conversation to be had at 6:30, but you might not necessarily want to be having to respond to LinkedIn messages that come in at about 11 p.m. So it's absolutely fine to set yourself these lines based on the content that you want to put out, but also managing your expectations with your audiences and with your connections, because I promise you, if you respond to a customer once on LinkedIn at midnight, you will have to respond to them every time they then consistently message you at midnight on LinkedIn. So it's about setting those boundaries for yourself, for your personal life, and for what you really want to have working from these social channels. Once you've got those kind of set in place, I want you to do a very, very quick sanity check for me. Now, the example always given is, would you say it to your mum? And if you wouldn't, don't put it on the internet. But my mum is particularly liberal, so she's not a great example for me. So what I would like you to imagine instead, as we're starting to think about this content and whether you would like it to tell your personal story in a business space, is I would like you to imagine that content is going to be on a billboard with your face on it, and it's going to be there forever, because once something goes out on the internet, we can delete the post, but you can never delete the screenshots, and it's why we see a lot of bigger brands get tripped up on things. But really, if we do the sanity check going in, makes it much easier. So I want you to imagine what you're about to post is going to go onto a billboard with your face, your company, and every bit of information on there. And I would like you to imagine that it is seen by your best customer, your worst customer, and your dream customer. And if it passes that test, and actually it adds value, that is a great representation of your personal brand. If there's anything that you're not sure about, spend a little bit of time thinking about that content again. So whether it's just how you've worded something, whether it's a slight play on words or something that you've got in there that you might think might be just a bit too cheeky for your worst nightmare customer, or might put off your dream customer, because at the moment you're working with SMEs but you would love to have a large corporation on the books, use that as a little sense check of your personal brand to make sure that it is appropriate, because sometimes it's hard to have that differentiation in voice between yourself as a business person and yourself as all those other things that you might need to be, like a friend, like a person of a certain age group, like a daughter, like a mother, like any other relationship that you have. It's absolutely fine that that bit of you is not always directly represented in your personal brand. So not everything needs to be framed in the fact that you might love a certain type of movie or a certain type of music. You don't need to worry about carrying these themes over. It's about giving yourself permission to have this personal, business, professional brand that actually is unadulterated by all of the other things that you have going on. Now, one of the things that I certainly have struggled with, and a lot of people have as I kind of speak to them, is the overlap between sort of, your friends seeing it. So people that you know socially that you've grown up with, and actually suddenly you've got to be this professional in a sort of professional space. And the worry of, the kind of, oh, will I look like I'm trying to do this? Will that work? Will people think less of me because I'm trying to do that? It's something, if you look at an influencer called Steve Bartlett, who runs Social Chain Agency, has talked about a lot about his representation and starting to understand himself as having a business brand that has value that he should utilize and capitalize upon, whilst also understanding that when he meets his friends in the pub, he's probably not going to be talking with great authority about the latest TikTok stats that he might discuss on social media in his professional space. So it's about having that understanding and giving yourself permission to have this sort of setup as to who you want to be digitally that is separate to the other elements of your life, which you are still allowed to have. You're still allowed to, go out for food and have a laugh with friends. You don't have to be that personal brand all the time, which is what a lot of people are aware of. But having it so it also works the other way. Your personal brand doesn't have to let too much of your actual individual private life in if you would not like it to. And getting the balance right will depend massively on the industry that you are in. So having that level of consideration as to what your audiences expect from you, from that initial analysis of, okay, who am I connected to and what do they look to me for? Are we giving them the information that they're looking for? Or are we just telling them that we're going to have a weekend off? Are we giving them actual real value because we're demystifying something that they might have had a lot of questions about, or we're educating them how a product or service might be the perfect solution for them? Or are we trying to talk to them about how cool and edgy we are and show them our new tattoos? Is it content that matches what they're looking for? And it's absolutely fine to have that content separately in a separate space, but for maintaining those business connections, it's very, very easy if you start to think about your work persona as almost a uniform that you put on, that you can put on, feel safe online, and have that personal brand representation. And to add an element of you, so to make sure that we don't look completely like business only robots, I would recommend that we go back to that old adage of people buy from people and start to look at, okay, we've got this very professional brand that is us talking about our field of knowledge and the things that we like, and how do we just make sure that without taking the conversation into spaces that our connections might not appreciate, do we actually showcase that we are still human as well? And it's about making us seem 3D and a little bit further beyond just what we do. So it's absolutely fine to be really passionate about business and about the things that we talk about, and give yourself permission to do this completely and without judgment on social media. If you are really excited about the latest accountancy software, then actually sharing that excitement and energy on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on anywhere where you are professional, it should be celebrated. You should never feel bad or feel like you're going to get judgment for that. But if you want to go beyond just that person that's all about the great accountancy software and actually add in elements of yourself as a person, I would recommend a standard rule of 3 to get your balance right. So we've got all that business energy and all these fantastic things that we want to talk about that are professional, that really keep us in that, this is what we do, this is how we present ourselves safe box. But I would really recommend considering expanding that out into your 3 topics. So 3 is essentially the magic number, because it allows us to still be super passionate about whatever work things we would like to talk about. And that is your number 1. So the number 1 thing that we should always be talking about is work and work related topics, because chances are, if you look at LinkedIn, if you look at Twitter, this is a professional space and we are literally looking at the content that might be most relevant to our business connections. It is 11:30-ish at my office this morning, and that is the fire drill, so I do apologize for any undue alarm concerns there. So with that in mind, we are keen to talk about the bits of work that are going to add most value to our audiences. Now, you've also got 2 more topics to play with here, and I would really think about the types of things that your audiences might be interested in that showcase you as a bit more of a well-rounded individual. You're not just all about work. You can be super enthusiastic about work, but there's also a couple of elements that distinguish you beyond work as you. And it means that in a sea of social media marketers, I am not just competing in a social media marketing sense. I'm actually also able to start to talk about things that are a little bit more me. And if you think about within your business sector, there's a whole load of things that you can talk about. And again, it depends on your connections, what you would normally talk to them about. So have a little bit of planning, but to give you some examples, anything about your local area that you are passionate about always works very, very well. particularly for Northeast businesses. I know it's something that a lot of us are very proud to be based in the Northeast. So amongst your posts on social media about your business and running your business, could we look to include some posts about other local businesses that are doing well, about other great local initiatives that are supporting the area that we're from, about fantastic local news stories that we're seeing? Could we look at our industry press? So are there any cool examples of, in a marketing space, adverts that have been produced by big brands that we like and would like to comment on? The standout one, of course, is always the John Lewis Christmas advert, but anything like that where we can actually talk about things that are happening in our industry that are maybe not directly related to how we run our business, but actually for anyone with a slight interest in that, it's going to capitalize on it. Anything that's related to sports, any local sports, anything that's always very positive is nice to include. If you would like to showcase your family on social media, this is a great way to be able to introduce talking about family adventures at the weekend, but whilst keeping that very locked down in a way that you feel comfortable with, and in a way that all members of your family feel comfortable with, including partners and kids if applicable. So it's about keeping that safe. You can look at anything in terms of, lots of people will post about exploring areas, so like local great outdoors, that type of content. So content that actually showcases a little bit of your personality, a little bit of your interests, and will help build those rapport points with people in your networks that share those similar interests. It will help make you a three-dimensional person, but it will not compromise all that passion or professional space. Generally, think of it in the billboard test, and if you want to have it as an added dimension, start to think about the types of things that you might make polite conversation with in real life networking events. So the types of things that you might like to talk about, whether that's the weather, whether it's what you did at the weekend, just have that as a relatively nice introduction. And by having that balance of posts, it will give you that balance of a 3D person. Now, in terms of ratios, I'd probably recommend twice as much work content as the other two categories. So your work content takes up about 60%, 65% of your posting, but then you've got about 35% that is split between your other two, or one if you just want to stick with one, interests and things that you can talk about in a professional capacity. If you would rather adjust those ratios for yourself, they are completely flexible. It's all about getting the right balance for you, but that will hopefully give you as a little bit of a starting point. I know lots of people on LinkedIn will share videos and pictures of their dogs, which I actually really love. I do think an animal post goes a long way. I've got one person in my LinkedIn connections who, every time she goes for a meeting with a client, or even now during Zoom, she will take a photograph of the mug the client is using and post that to social media to narrate her own individual business and kind of journeys. Every time I now see a mug on social media, as I'm scrolling through, I think, oh, that must be a post from that particular person, and that works very, very well for her personal brand. I relate her to that content, and if it's ever a picture of a mug that hasn't been posted by her, I'm always kind of surprised. So there's lots of ways to express a little bit of creativity and a little bit of a curveball within that, but it will give you the element of personality and then the element of being a three-dimensional person that people might want to buy from, because you have these attributes beyond just being able to talk about work, but it will frame it safely within that context of work. So you don't have to worry about overstepping a line when we've got the lines nice and cleanly drawn, and it gives you a really solid playing field to get started in. Now you can continue to evaluate and continue to evolve as you go, but it's really about getting that foundation in place that will help develop that out as a starting point. And then that's going to bring you back to your individual narrative. So beginning to tell a story and beginning to get that really working for you in terms of the snippets of story that we tell and the level of journey that we take our audiences on. So everything always starts with once upon a time, but we really want to think about those little connection points that we can create with our audiences to help take them on our personal brand story, which is essentially our entire business career story on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, but we've got to have our audiences invested and with us for the long haul. So by starting that narrative right, the easiest way to get on board is with narration. So when we talk about telling that business narrative, and I talk about narrating, you are literally the Morgan Freeman in the Green Mile of your own life. So I want you to imagine that iconic Morgan Freeman voice next time you're sat at your desk and hear it in your own head, just narrating what you are doing, and start to get into that idea of your business story is being told by the work that you do and the actions that you take. And the easiest way to get started with translating that to a personal brand online is to start to actually share that business story with the world. The easiest way to get started is literally just to talk about what you are actually doing. So if, for example, you attended a great online event, you could talk about that in a LinkedIn post. If you watched a really helpful TED Talk and you wanted to talk about that in a LinkedIn post, you can do that. If you had a great client case study, you can talk about that. So it's about just getting started with talking about what's happening around you and really telling that story on social media. Now, we don't have to tell it for the sake of telling it, and we can always kind of structure it so we're only posting when things are interesting and we have that little filtered lens. But literally by starting to let people into your business world, we are starting to take them on that journey with us, and we are starting to get them to buy into our once upon a time. So literally the easiest way to start posting on social media to build your personal brand is to start posting about what you are doing and start to give your audiences insight into you as an individual and your business space. What do you do during the day? Who do you work with? What does typical activities look like for you? What do typical results look like for you? If you are at a networking event online, can we share that information? If you are in your office and there's a lovely sunrise or sunset, can we take a photograph of that on social media and talk about it? It's about making those features new and making that work for you. And then once we've got that foundation and we're in the habit of sharing what's going on, we can start to look at actually developing that personal brand into beyond the day-to-day narrative as what's actually happening to us, to add in some really key features and highlights and actually create content that is created purely for the purposes of developing your personal brand on social media. And what that content looks like fits a number of different categories. So I'm just going to run you through these quite quickly with a couple of examples. So the aspirational content type is the glossy image showcasing highlights. So this is your absolute ta-da moment. This is your unveiling. This could be, if you are B2B, this could actually be a case study. So although it's not necessarily a glossy image, it could be a well-presented PDF that actually gives some information about what you do and how you do it, and demonstrates results to your audiences. This is the, if you buy my product or service, this will change your life. So we're not selling through the please buy my product or service, but we are actually giving the ultimate proof of this is what happened when this product or service is used. If you are product based, this is your beautiful product in situ. And that should form only a small part of your personal brand story. The next option that we've got is helpful. So content that adds value and builds authority. Knowledge costs pretty much nothing to share. We have it. I mean, all it's costing basically to share a top tip or you know, an essential bit of advice will be the time taken to either write that up, pop it into a graphic, or record a short video about it, and you can share that snippet. It could literally be a 2-minute clip telling your audience how to tackle one issue that troubles them. That will build authority for you in your sector. It will also begin what we refer to as a transactional relationship with your audiences. So this is the idea that they have had something from you that gives them value, and in response to that, they will feel subconsciously slightly indebted to you because you have given them that value. And how that is repaid could be through the form of they'll engage with your content. It could be in the form of they'll purchase an ebook, or they'll do something that supports your business in some slight way. Or it could be they'll go away, they will implement that idea that creates value. Next time they need something more substantial, they will come back to you with more of a substantial inquiry and look to actually pay for a little bit of consultancy, a little bit of advice, or your product or service. So we're beginning that transactional relationship. We're not talking about giving away everything that you know completely for free, but think about things that would complement what you do. The example that we use in the office all the time is for car dealerships, it's the 20 pence trick with your tires. So if you are unfamiliar with this, we often have after sales departments within car dealerships that are looking to sell more tires, more after sales work. And as a little top tip, we encourage them to record a video that actually really helps their audience by saying, if you're worried about your tire tread, take a 20 pence piece and slot it in the groove. If it covers the little ridge on the 20 pence, your tire is legal and okay to drive on, but you probably want to get it checked. But if it is less than the groove, that is possibly an illegal tire and you need to get it checked right away for your own safety. So that information costs them literally nothing to share apart from the time that it takes for them to record a video with that information. But because they are transparent and they're adding value, when it actually comes for the customer time to change tires, or if they are worried about that tire in the first place, the dealership that they go to will be the one that gave them the information. It's the transactional relationship that starts to build that authority. So engaging, creating human connections for you. The easiest way, total life hack here, to create human connections is by having human elements. So if it is a narrative about yourself, can we have a picture or video of you? We are biologically pre-programmed to look for eyes. So if you can feature a human face with eyes in it, it works very, very well on social media. It will work to what we refer to as stop the scroll, because as people are scrolling through looking for content to engage with, grabs their attention a little bit more. If you are having a bad hair day and you don't want to go full face, can we include a human element? So this could be a pen writing at a desk. It could be your hand, your image, just anything that denotes a real life human has been here. If you're going to try the mug photos, can the mugs be held in a human hand rather than just an abstract concept? So we're framing that with humanness every step of the way on a subconscious people buy from people level. So entertaining, so ensuring that your audiences like what they see, whether that's you're recording a video and you just need to bring a good level of enthusiasm to keep your audiences engaged, or whether it's just something that people might like to see, like an office pet photo or a really good view. People will value that content and it will make them just a little bit happier, just a little bit of happiness chemical released in the brain associated with you and your personal brand because you've delivered that for them. If we look at a brand example of that, Cadbury's do it very well. If you look at Cadbury's advertising, a lot of it is just designed to make you feel good rather than necessarily create an immediate need in you for chocolate, so that next time you are in front of that aisle in the supermarket and there is a whole array to choose from, you are drawn subconsciously to the Cadbury's chocolate because it has made you in the past feel happier. It works in exactly the same way with your own personal brand. So rewarding, make your connections feel like they get something from being connected to you. Are you doing enough to give back, either through that helpful video or actually through exclusives, or even, as we often see, just making your connections feel valued by sharing and engaging with their content on social media to show your support for them. And then selling. There is a place for us as individuals to sell on social media, and it can feel a little bit, but I have got another top tip coming up that will help you with that exact issue. It's just about making sure that you can feel comfortable, and in order to go for the sale, what I always suggest is demonstrate the value first. So when it comes to your regular posting strategy, constantly think with anything that you put out that's passed the billboard test, Does this add value to my connections? Are they going to get something from seeing it? And in addition to being a little bit happier, we can also look at the things that we can bring as professionals to that content to build our personal brand. So we can build our personal brand around providing clarity in a complex industry. So if we can take this difficult industry thing and explain it clearly to our audiences, we have added huge value by filtering it through our own personal brand. Can we provide context? If there is a changing in VAT legislation and you are a top accountant, can we create content that actually explains what your audiences need to know for their individual sector or business size? Can we take that, again, huge bit of information, and actually say, right, from that, it works like this, and that's your clarity, and what you need to know and do is this if you are in that sector. So we're actually positioning that, and by having that content run through you as an individual, we're bringing that value to the table. Can we add a little bit of data? Can we say, this is interesting to see in the headlines because we have found that 82% of audiences will trust a corporation more if they can see senior management on social media. So can we actually use data or a stats to help educate our connections via our personal brand? Can we provide insight? So can we talk about our own personal experiences, what we know works, and add and share knowledge that way? Can we give our audiences a really clear explanation as to what they need? Can we share news? Can we essentially create an almost middlemanless system in our LinkedIn where if there's any news for our audience sectors, we will get that news out in a nice, timely way so that our connections will get the value of seeing it via us and know that they can come back to us for additional clarity, context, data, insight, or explanation on that breaking news? And can we share and always attribute to best practice? So talking about the things that we are doing that other organizations within our sector may not necessarily do, but we build that idea of ourselves as individuals that are constantly ensuring best practice is adhered to. There's a couple of little tricks that we can get on board with to make sure that that's a little bit easier for you. And one of them is simply the words that we use in our posts when we're talking from ourselves as individuals. And one of the key and most influential individuals and masters of the personal brand, may I add, is Ogilvy. Now, Ogilvy within a marketing context was the original godfather of marketing. He was the original Don Draper, allegedly. I don't know whether his personal life was quite that colourful, but he started life as a door-to-door salesman. And in the 50s, the late 50s and 60s, he set up one of the most iconic marketing agencies in the world. Back then, it was all print marketing, print and radio. That was key for him. But they are still one of the biggest agencies in the world today. And he identified in 1963 the key, most persuasive words to getting audiences to see value in a marketing message. And these are all words that we can use in our own personal branding and our own personal content shared on social media that tells our brand story. And a lot of these are quite wowy words. So we have got suddenly, now, announcing, introducing, very much playing around with the idea that our audiences are coming to us for us being at the forefront of what we are doing. Amazing, improvement, sensational, remarkable. Are we putting the excitement into what we are talking about? Revolutionary, startling, miracle, magic, offer, quick. Quick and easy are very much words that have stood the test of time, and we're going to look at the most persuasive words in social on the next slide. But I want you to have a little moment to look through these and consider the level of synergy there is with these most persuasive words from all the way back in 1963 to actually social media's most persuasive words now. We still see instantly, free, check out. The language may have switched slightly on us as we've evolved linguistically, but the level of excitement, injection into the narrative as to what is happening as very cutting edge is still there. The use of direct address works phenomenally well. As an individual, speak to those individuals in your network. If you are looking to do this, then we can help with that. Ask them questions to engage them. When, would, where, tell us, should, and those types of words will massively help add value to your post and to convert your audiences, to get them to do something else, whether that's to engage with you a little bit more, whether that's just to consider you a little bit more, whether that's to click like on a post. These are all elements that, unless we stir these feelings within individuals that we are connected to, we are probably not going to see that much personal brand growth. It's all about involving other people in our stories, getting them on board, getting that buy-in, and keeping them moving with us, adding some excitement, sharing best practice, making what we are doing work for ourselves in a way that takes audience members on this journey with us. So once you've got your posting strategy nailed down in terms of the types of things that you might like to share between those set topic categories, you've got a range of different options to share them. You can post text updates only on LinkedIn, same with Twitter. If you wanted to share a nice visual, all platforms are visual now. Twitter is visual, Instagram's visual, LinkedIn's visual, so we can share really lovely visuals with our audiences. We can share PDF documents. Now that is a preserve of LinkedIn, and you can sneak them onto Facebook as JPEGs admittedly, but we would recommend keeping your PDFs on LinkedIn. It is the professional space for the professional documents. But with LinkedIn, there is one more additional feature that is fantastically effective to use and really actually sets LinkedIn as a personal brand opportunity apart from other networks. And that is the fact that LinkedIn video is one of the most engaged with types of media on the platform. And on LinkedIn, you can upload a video to your personal profile that is up to 10 minutes long, and audiences will watch it. That is the remarkable thing. If we upload video onto Facebook, the average view time is under 30 seconds. So even if you've got the world's most compelling video, it's actually really hard to break that audience habit of only absorbing snippets of video. On LinkedIn, it's a slightly different ball game. There's less competitive video content, but there is more opportunity because people are actually going there for real advice. So you've got up to 10 minutes to play with. Video rules always stand as long as it needs to be and as short as it can be, but it gives you a whole load more scope on LinkedIn to actually tell a meaningful video. And on LinkedIn, because it is personal, if it's coming from your personal profile, audiences do not expect that full bells and whistles. In fact, they actually prefer it a little bit more if we can, again, go back to those, are we making it human enough? Are we giving our nosy connections enough of us to really get a little bit excited about? So sharing a video that is taken on the fly, it could be planned, but it could just be literally you in front of an iPhone, in the car, between meetings, or at your desk just recording something this is a recent headline and I wanted to just jump on and record a quick video to share with my connections because X, Y, and Z. This is the biggest personal brand opportunity on LinkedIn. It encompasses so many of those things that we've talked about. You can add value, you can add context, clarity, explanation, data, insights. It personalizes it because it is your real human face. It gives context into you as an individual. People are able to see what you wear, your mannerisms. It is the biggest opportunity to really showcase your personal brand for minimal effort, aside from taking a little bit of time out of your day to record a couple of video takes and upload the one you like best. Always give. Try and encourage these videos to be almost all about your audiences and what they want to see, adding value and sharing information at every stage, and keep it less about me and more about your audiences. This is how we're going to build a long-term narrative that doesn't burn you out as an individual. If you're an individual, even if you add huge value, but then you constantly ask and ask and ask and ask from your audience, eventually that run of favor and good luck runs out. If you are someone that will add value, even then if you do have an ask or a sales message, it's going to be more responsively received because of the balance between giving and taking with your audience. And when it comes down to you as a business person and your personal brand with no organization to hide directly behind, it's about making that work for you. Having video also gives you access to phenomenally in-depth stats and data on LinkedIn, which I would thoroughly recommend. It allows you to see the company, people that have watched it, what level you are pitching at, and where your connections are. So again, coming back to understanding your audiences, once you get that content out, you're able to see whether the right audience members are engaging with it. And I wouldn't normally admit to this, but I'm going to tell you guys on this webinar that if I create any level of content, whether that's a video, whether that's a text post, whether that's an image that's going out on my personal LinkedIn, I will always create that with one set individual in mind. So I will stereotype what I think the potential audience is for this. So it could be, I want to go into automotive and I want marketing professionals within automotive. I will pick one of my connections in my head and I will write or create or record that post just for them, because it massively helps me in terms of nailing down, am I saying everything that I need to say? Am I making it clear? And will that person understand it? And there is no better feeling, because obviously this is completely anonymous when you then upload it, than when that one person engages with your content, because you know that you've absolutely hit the nail on the head. Or when peers from that same group engage. But it just means that you're able to actually have a really comprehensive view of what you are saying and why you are saying that and how that works for you as an individual within your current network. So one final thing to talk to you about, and we will wrap up and do some Q&A. So if you have got any questions as we go, please do keep putting them in that Q&A box. We will get to it at the end. But I'm going to tackle the very tricky issue of selling through your personal social media. And the secret to selling through your personal social media while keeping your soul intact is Shrek. So there you have it, the secret to selling through your personal social media, and I hope it's been helpful. What I mean is, the thing about ogres is they're like onions. They have layers. And the way to sell through your social media to make it something that you can bear as an individual is simply to create layers to your social media messaging. And this comes back to seeing yourself as a separate entity of your business. Even if you are Natalie Eminae Financial Services, as we mentioned right at the start, there is always going to be a differentiation between you as a real life person and your business. Your business is business. You are 3D. You've worked very hard to tell this story and build human connections. What I want you to think about is the messages that your business sends and the marketing messages that you as an individual send that are your personal brand, and have that really clear in your head going in for a sales message. And what I want you to do is create your own layer within this. So if you have a fantastic offer or a great opportunity, I want you to create that as a post on your LinkedIn company page. So I want anything that is hard sell to go through your LinkedIn company page. And that is where it's going to live. It could be an outstanding offer. It could be a free consultancy. That goes on your LinkedIn company page. And that is not you as an individual saying that. That is your business saying it. That is your business voice. Then I want you to share that post as an individual. You have created now a layer. We've got the hard sell, and then we've got your layer on top. That's the business. This is you. When it comes to adding that layer in, think about your audiences, who you're connected to. Pick that one person. Have that one person in mind that's going to be a dream client for this product, for this service, and you write this post for them. You want to write a post based on what is important to that individual or to that sector because you create value at your layer. Now, there's different opportunities that you can capitalize on. So think about your audiences as to what you put into your layer as an individual. So you could capitalize on motivators around optimism and opportunities. So actually, is the person or the demographic that you're targeting, are they eternal optimists? Do they want the best? Are they aiming for best practice? And then if that post is, contact us to book a consultation today for only £99, you can then share that as an individual and say, this is great for anyone in my network who is looking to achieve more through X, Y, and Z. Contact me directly and I'd be very happy to help. So we're not telling them that to book something for a set price. We are telling them that there is value within that if they want to achieve certain things. Can we sell based on needs? So actually, contact us today for a consultation for only £99 packed with value. The layer that you add is, if you are worried about A, B, and C, we can help overcome this with X, Y, and Z. So you actually create a solution to their problem and then prompt them to contact you for more information. So don't prompt them to book as an individual, prompt them to contact you for more information. And then can we sell on their pressures? So contact us today, but it really helps with if you are looking to achieve this, this, and this over the coming months. So acknowledge what might be driving that audience base, whether that is optimism and striving for best practice, whether that is a solution to their problem, or whether that is a worry or concern. So it might not be a real problem, but it might be a perceived potential issue, and talk about how what we are offering can help overcome that and add that layer. It's all about getting that hard sell, adding that layer, coating that up so it comes across in a very, very human way. And you're not actually even at that point selling. The offer is there, the offer is strong, but we're talking about adding value and helping other businesses. And as a personal brand, whatever your sector and whatever you do, that is really the bit that's going to be with your audiences for the long haul. Keep them involved in your narrative and keep them involved in your story, delivering huge value as we go through the coming days, weeks, months, and years. So to build your brand on social media, post regularly, share that great content, engage with other people. You are not an island. You can't do it alone. You've got to have those network connections. Otherwise, you might as well just be talking to an empty room, and add that value. We are talking about serious long-term strategy that will help you at every stage of business development or career progression. And if you can get this right, you can achieve absolutely anything with your own personal brand. So thank you so much for going along with all of the presentation. Really do appreciate that. I know we've got one question in the question box, so I'll invite Kirsty back. And then any more questions, please do stick around. I will answer them all for you. Be super selfish. Ask anything that you want to know exactly for you as an individual.
So I think that you might have just covered this off quite well, but you might, I don't know whether you've got anything else that you would like to add to it. So the question is, what about posts that have more direct selling element as opposed to sharing info, etc.? Are these frowned upon? So I think you have to, but
absolutely. If you feel comfortable within your personal brand putting out a hard sales message, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you want to do the layers trick, it often makes it a lot more palpable for some of us. I know it's something certainly I personally not a massive fan of, but if you can sort of blend it in and actually add it in value. So, if you don't feel like you're selling when you're speaking to someone, you feel like you're just fixing a problem for them and working together, and you feel more comfortable with that than a sales strategy, that generally works better for a lot of people. So hopefully that has helped.
Yeah, cool. And I mean, that's all the questions that we have. Has anybody else got anything that they'd like to ask Natalie before we close for the day?
Oh, thank you for joining, Michael, and the kind words. That's much appreciated.
No, I think we've got a quiet audience this morning. You must have covered off everything that they needed to do.
Well, they're very welcome. If anyone has any questions, please do send them in a digital drive. They will get them across to us and we will answer them. For anyone that might think of something as you're going along, please do try those activities. They will help whatever stage you're at. And yeah, best of luck building those personal brands. If anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, I would love to watch your business stories. So please do come and connect with me. And each other if you want to put it in the comments as well.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, thanks Anna, and the same thank you for a very informative morning.
You're super welcome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So yeah, everyone's slowly leaving us.
That's okay, I'll give a little wave. It's Oh, but that's been brilliant. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming to see us. We'll hopefully see you again in the next few weeks. So I'm just going to quickly get in touch with Rory. Be 1 second there.
No worries.
I think he's recording our. Sorry to keep you, Natalie.
Oh, you're quite all right. Don't worry. Oh, thank you, Stephen. Have a great day, everyone.
He's Rory back.
He's been to London.
He's sitting on London Bridge there.
Hello. Yes, thank you very much. Okay, so are we going to share this slide here? So how's everyone doing? You okay?
Oh, yeah. Good, thank you. Yes.
Good morning.
Okay, yes. Well, this. Let me just. Okay. And is there any more questions to be answered, or are we all okay?
No, everyone's good. I think everyone's leaving us now.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Peter, for the kind comment in the question box. Much appreciated. Glad you had a good morning.
Wonderful. Well, look, everyone. Oh, fantastic. Brilliant. Okay. So. Okay, I think that's okay.
Sorry, I didn't know what I'm never here for the end, so I wasn't quite sure what the
No.
Still recording, so I didn't know.
Yeah, no, thanks, Seppi, and that's really great. Apologies, that meeting. I think the first 30 minutes of that meeting was spent. Yeah, but anyway, I'm looking at the sentiments. I missed the second half, obviously, of the session, but from looking at the sentiments, the end, brilliant. I mean, how do you all find it today? Was it all okay for you?
Yeah, it was good. I think we had a few little connection issues, and I don't think my Zoom was entirely playing ball with the slides and stuff, but I think it went.
No, it wasn't noticed at all. It went well.
No, brilliant. Yeah, I think all the sort of little technical difficulties just moved over quite well from what I saw when coming back on for the 5-minute thing and stuff like
that. Oh, that's good. That's really good to hear, because in your head you're like, oh, don't think about that, just keep going.
Yeah.